So we've talked about tasks in a lot of detail, and we've talked about measuring tasks. Now it's at that moment where we want to actually move forward and deliver the actual delight. And you guys had already started to do it by brainstorming solutions to the pain. I think we're all designers, so we usually jump to the solutions anyway. Before we actually jump into solutions and exercise, I just want to share with you a couple of the patterns that our team has created that kind of align to these different phases, although they can be used kind of throughout the experience. So for us, this was really about creating consistent experiences across many, many different jobs that QuickBooks solves, because our team isn't the only one that's actually executing on these experiences. So if you work at a company where you have kind of toolkits or pattern libraries, this was essentially kind of the goal of the project we were working on. And so for us, like creating awesome first use experiences across many different jobs. So these are some of the patterns. You can see them all across the board. I'll just call out a few, and I'll kind of walk through a couple of examples. But really in the discover phase, there's a lot of patterns for discovery, for that kind of initial moment. In understand, we have a few. In setup, really kind of guided experiences. We hadn't really aligned as an ecosystem on how to guide users through experiences, so that was really important. And then achieve benefit and seal the deal was another one where it took a lot of work to kind of align everybody around doing those things in a consistent and cohesive way. So this is a breakdown of the patterns kind of at a high level. So we have this dashboard card pattern, which is really a discovery moment for users to discover a new feature. From there, they usually have an option to kind of jump right in, so they can either go straight to a setup flow, or they can take this learn path. And we have this learn page pattern that we created because we had many, many different learn experiences across the product, and we had to finally say, okay, what's the one cohesive experience we can create around a learning moment? And then from there, in some cases, you'll have a product selector moment, and this is like a choice between maybe one offering or another offering, like an upgrade kind of path. And then we have this step flow pattern, which is really that guided experience that walks you through one at a time. And then the last one down here, so across the different navigation, and this is pretty common these days, when the user doesn't have any data, what does that experience look like? And so our team kind of generated a lot of different solutions for what zero-state experiences could be, and then we tested them to find out what was working best, and I'll share that one with you. So this was the initial zero state of the banking tab in QuickBooks. So this is the experience where you go in, you add your bank account, and then all of your transactions are going to come in. It's basically like logging into Wells Fargo. And then from there, you have to go in and categorize those transactions. And so this is how it kind of started. And we had a lot of users come in, and they're just like completely scratching their heads. They're like, okay, so I'm supposed to click this button, but I'm trying to understand, like, what are these things at the top? What are all these different tabs? Like, the user's getting totally lost and distracted before they've even gotten started. So what we did was we took actually the next step in the experience, which is to get started and connect their bank account, and we brought that up. So we kind of eliminated a step. We also eliminated a lot of confusion in the top and with the guidance kind of bubble hanging out there. And we made it really simple for you to just kind of jump in and actually get started and connect your bank. And the kind of surfacing the logos here made it really easy for people to see, oh, I get it. Okay, I'm going to put my bank in here, and then my bank data is going to come down from the cloud here. So ultimately, then we turned this into a pattern that we could use across many different zero-state experiences. So I think up on the board, there's probably a few different examples you can see how we kind of stretch that across different experiences to either get them to that first task, or if it's a more complicated experience, get them into a learn experience. So this was just another look at the dashboard card. So this one, I think I mentioned before, it has this kind of animation experience. Because what we had before is people were kind of hunting and pecking for tasks. And when we have these quick tasks, like getting set up with a pro or downloading the mobile app, we wanted something that customers could quickly and easily do right from here. So you can see how quickly and easily from one spot the user can actually accomplish that entire task, where before we had to launch them kind of into an entire flow just to do this one thing. So ultimately we rolled that out as a pattern for kind of quickly getting to accomplish tasks. This is the Learn page experience. So this is kind of one example, and then this is applied to many, many different use cases. And you can see this one up on the board as well. Like I mentioned before, we had a big problem with customers. Like we dumped them right into a setup flow, but they'd have no context for the experience, what it was going to be, how much it was going to cost. So we generated this page, which was kind of like a marketing landing page, but a little bit more content focused. And so we had many different components that we generated to put together into one page. And so all of our teams can go in and kind of mix and match with the components that they need to solve for the best possible understand experience for their user and use case. And so that's what several of these different use cases are. And we use a lot of illustration and animation, in some cases video, in some cases imagery, to really help kind of users get it immediately, like what's the benefit. Okay, so this one, before task modal pattern, so this is another discovery moment where a user is about to do something and we want to kind of stop them and have them take a pause moment to understand something that's about to happen. So these are a couple of examples here. So in this case, after you connect your bank, before you land back in that long list of transactions, we want to stop you to say, hey, before you actually dive into this list, we have this kind of animated illustration that shows you what you're going to do next. And in this case, before you actually go and send an invoice to your customer, we're interrupting you to say, hey, before you do that, like there's this other way to do it. Let's try. You can try sending an invoice directly to us and we'll pay you $10. But the point here is it's a little bit of an interruptive experience. This is one we have to be careful about using because a lot of times customers, they want to get to what they're trying to do. They don't want to be interrupted. But we found that when we were able to kind of use illustration and animation, people got the concept quickly before they dove in and tried to complete a task and then get stuck. This example is the step flow. So this is our guided flow. Lots of different applications have their own kind of version of this. But for us, it was important to align across the board on how a step flow interacts and works from a visual and interaction design perspective. And there are a few others that are up on the board if you guys want to get up and take a look at any point. I didn't put them all in here. But we're actually now going to give you guys a chance to play around either with some of these patterns or any others that are going to solve the problem that you guys found with your highest pain task. So I think you had a really good example of geofencing. When I walk in, it should just automatically know. So if that's the solution, then go ahead and sketch that out. This is an example that we used earlier from Uber. So instead of having them type in the credit card information on a teeny tiny phone, right, we can just have them quickly snap a photo. Yeah. So for this exercise, you can sketch out too.
Can I just add one thing in terms of the format? So again, if you think of how we walk through, we have our job, we know what phase we want to focus on, in this case setup, which is the phase stage right there. And now you're only focusing on that one task. So and my recommendation, when you're making your case to senior leadership for resources, we want to invest in improving this particular task. And we are going to go broad, going back to our D50 principle, we're going to go broad, go narrow, come up with some really great ideas to reduce the pain, reduce the cycle time, reduce the thing. In theory, that should all ladder up. So you can imagine over a period of time, weeks, months, years, you're slowly chipping away at all of these pain points, all of these tasks. And that's all laddering up into that big customer benefit. So I think that's kind of what the focus is here. And just one other little nuance here is Kylie introduced these ideas of before task or after task. These are all ways of interrupting discovery points where you can re-engage the user. When you actually go back to do your real product experience, if it's in a first-time use cycle for the very first time, or if the customer's been using your product for 2 or 3 years, these same patterns can be used to re-engage a customer. We used the example of Uber Pool. Have you guys used Uber Pool before? Did you use it by accident, or did you know you were using it? Yeah, we got a few laughing people. Uber did not do a great job, in my humble opinion, of introducing that new discovery point and feature in a really clear and understandable way, right? They kind of slipped it in, and you got stuck in an Uber Pool when time was really important for you and cost wasn't. So these things are really beneficial anytime you're introducing a new feature. Anytime you drop something new into a product, you need to step back and reassess how it affects the overall understanding, setup, benefit, achieving the benefit. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. This was just another quick example from the payroll side. So instead of having the employer go in and enter all that I-9 information after the person hands it in paper format, we could actually delegate that responsibility to the employee. So this is just an example sketch of that. So your sketches can be really rough, lightweight. They don't have to be anything too fancy. And then you can take some notes on the side about the problem that you're solving.